she made a number of comments, one of which is that we are in danger of losing our democracy in 10 years unless, of course, they can pass their voter reform act. So essentially what she's saying is that we're going to lose democracy unless we turn over our rights to the far left. She
Oh, no, it's
is
even worse than that because BU probably doesn't do a really great job because she has a degree in economics or math because she says, yes, we'll lose our democracy in 10, but does it really make a difference, Dr. Lopkin, when she says global warming is going to kill us in 6? Who the hell
yeah,
cares? I mean,
right.
we'll already be dead. So who
She
cares?
she has gone over the edge with these doomsday predictions. And I think honestly, the reason is that when she got into this, she didn't know how Congress worked. She still, based on the statements she said recently, doesn't understand how the presidency and executive orders work. She had no idea what she was really getting into. And because of this, she has been ranked as the least effective lawmaker. In her time in Congress, she has gotten no laws out of committee. Everything she has pushed for has failed. And now she's lashing out. She's basically a child throwing a temper
Exactly, no
tantrum
question. Yes,
because
she's
she has not gotten her way. And over the past year, you've seen across the country voters rebuke every policy she's been pushing.
she was the worst thing, the best thing to happen to or one of the best things to happen to conservatism, and her and the squad has essentially caused fractures, divisions, and ill-gotten policies. It's destroyed the Democratic Party, at least for the midterms. Her and her
It
crew,
it has destroyed
the
them for the
genius crew.
midterms. They are pushing back finally. Pelosi, in an interview last weekend, publicly said, the Democrats are not supporting defund the police, except for a few members that they've talked to. The moderates, Manchin, Sinema, couple of folks in Congress have finally started publicly pushing back against the left. The Democratic governors across the country have started pushing back against the far left. So the Democratic Party has finally realized if we want to survive, we need to move back towards the center and back towards helping the working class. Now
No question.
they're not going to do it in time for the midterms.
No, they're
But
not. But I also think I want your opinion on this. I'm sure our listeners as well. Yes, it's about that, about political survival. But it's also when the squad first came on the scene, they were scared shitless of them. I think they see their power diminishing, and I think when power diminishes, there's a vacuum, and now it's open season. I think it's going to get worse. I think they might actually be more marginalized than they are right now, or at least the plan.
oh, they're definitely going to be marginalized. Almost every member of the squad, last time I checked, is facing a primary challenger. So they're not just fighting against the Republicans, they're fighting against their fellow Democrats. And they're trying to push more liberal candidates in districts where moderate Democrats can barely hold on. So if a progressive wins the primary, they're almost guaranteed to lose in the general election. They have really damaged the Democratic Party. And I think there were two events that finally put the nail in the squad's coffin and started the Democratic Party on the track to rebuilding as a genuine party that represents the American people. The first was the vote to fund the missile dome for Israel, where basically
The
every
Iron Dome.
Congress,
Yep.
yeah, every congressperson voted for this except the squad, and even AOC didn't have the guts to vote against it. She just didn't vote.
She did cry.
She did cry about it. Yes, I think that was the first, and then the second event was Manchin and Sinema putting the nail in the coffin for Build Back Better. That basically told the liberal left that they're done. They're not getting their agenda passed. Nobody wants their agenda. America has been turning against it. And then also, we had the 2021 elections where you saw in Virginia, they got rid of the Democrats. Progressive candidates lost across the country.
And
And
almost lost in New Jersey,
almost lost
a
in New
solid
Jersey.
blue state.
And just in the last few days, you had far left progressive school board members lose a recall election in San Francisco.
Yes, amazing.
If
yes.
if the progressives can't win in San Francisco, they are done.
Agree. Well, speaking of done, this could be well done. Like I like my hamburgers. You look at it. We all agree. Everyone agrees, except for Nancy Pelosi, that the Democrats are going to lose the House. I was always under the impression it was going to be really tight for the Senate, but a recent poll came out addressing both the Senate and the gubernatorial races. And in the Senate, if I was a Democrat or a Democratic operative, I would be scared shitless, because right now, for the seats that are up for election, you have 9 solid in the Democratic camp, and one of them is Connecticut with Blumenthal. What can I tell you? And one leaning towards Democrat is that's in Colorado. You have 5 toss-ups, 4 leaning, and one of those who are supposedly leaning is Rubio, but he's up by 7 points. 1 likely Republican, 14 solid Republican. So you have like 20 some odd, or basically about 20 that are, or 19 that are solidly or at least leaning Republican, and the 5 toss-ups, if the Republicans get half, it's a shellacking. It's like brutal.
Yeah, remember,
and then in the gubernatorial races, it's even worse.
Yeah,
Thank you, the squad. Thank you to
yeah,
the squad.
The key in the Senate that people have to remember is, even with all those numbers, the Republicans only have to flip 1 seat. It's a 50-50 split right now. If the Democrats lose anything, they lose the Senate. So the Democrat, and I mean, it works the other way as well. The Democrats have to flip 1 seat as well. But the Democrats are going against the headwinds of Joe Biden because he's dragging the entire ticket down. They're going against the headwinds of the squad and the progressive left, who are actually actively gunning for moderate Democrats. So where the Republicans are basically just trying to take seats away from the Democrats, you've got the Democrats trying to defend themselves against fellow Democrats and then try to take seats from the Republicans.
No, I think I mean, if you look at it, the Republicans absolutely flip Congress. And if they flip, let's say, 5 seats in this, that is a shot heard round the world. Then Biden is beyond a lame duck. It's whatever. I can't even tell you with the term.
I've actually seen some predictions. Now, this is not my prediction. I don't know if this is even possible, but there have been polling numbers that have the Republicans flipping 10 senatorial seats.
Yes.
Now, if that happens, the Republicans take control of the House and have a veto-proof majority in the Senate, which means, yes, for 2 years, Biden is an absolute lame duck because the Republicans can put any law they want up And even if Biden vetoes it, they can override him.
Yes,
That's actually how dire it is for the Democrats. That this
and
is
I don't see it
actually
getting any
possible.
better with gas prices approaching $100 a barrel, not looking good. And to your point, Dr. Lopkin, in a generic poll of people's attitudes, the GOP now has a 12-point advantage when they had about a 12-point disadvantage less than a year ago. That's a 24, if you can do the math, AOC. That's a 24 points swing. Not good. Speaking of not good, the Biden administration, in terms of geopolitically, has no idea what the hell they're doing. They're emboldening our enemies like Iran. They denied giving tankers, that is, flying transport tankers, to Israel. Um, what kind of a signal does that send? And again, also, it takes a card off the table. They're so friggin' stupid that they don't get it. Giving a couple tankers to Israel gives Israel at least the implied capability of taking out Iran's nuclear capabilities, but no, they can't do that. So all those people who are talking about, oh, how bad Trump is and how he's a racist and whatever, well, Israel is a lot better off with him versus numbnuts.
Well, remember, it goes back to Robert Gates' statement that for 50 years, Joe Biden has been on the wrong side of every foreign policy decision. And that's continuing. And I love that every time he makes a speech, the White House press corps, Jen Psaki, all start making the rounds because they've got to clarify what he says. The latest one is he talked about the fact that if Russia invades Ukraine, it's going to cause energy prices to go up. And Jen Psaki comes out and says, well, he didn't mean to imply that we're making foreign policy decisions based on energy prices. And it's like, no, if you listen to the speech, it's very clear that that's not what he's saying. What he's saying is he's making excuses for why energy prices are going to skyrocket and trying to deflect the blame from his administration.
It's it's very interesting, and I think I want to close on your opinion on this. I think it's fascinating, not fascinating, interesting, perplexing that their prescription for success or to reboot was going to get Camilla and Little Joe on the road again. And I think they've kind of kiboshed that because the more he speaks, the more obviously mainstream media, they have to cover it, and more people see total incompetency and senility.
Well, yeah, it's not just the incompetence. Every time he speaks, more and more people start saying, "Okay, you know what? He needs a cognitive test."
Yes.
Because he's lashing out at the reporters. And let's face it, the only reason he got into office was because he stayed in a bunker during most of the campaign and the press gave him a pass on everything.
No, they
Well,
didn't. They asked him what's his
no,
favorite ice cream.
yeah.
No, they did, and he took a while, and then he said Rocky Road or whatever it was. Yes, that was their
So
toughest question.
yes, and now he's lashing out at them, and they're starting to strike back because they're tired of him not taking their questions, and when he does, calling them names and being in general who Joe Biden always was. Yeah, he was never friendly Uncle Joe. This is who Joe Biden really is.
No doubt. It was a complete bullshit about what Amtrak Joe and Lunch Pail. No, he's always been a political operative and not the nicest guy. But I do think it's beyond that. He's just calling them names and they're offended. I think they do the dirty work of the Democratic Party, and the Democratic Party desperately needs him not to run. Not that he's even capable of that, but he needs to go away, and they're helping
Well,
in that effort.
I think John Kennedy, and I'm referring to the Republican senator, not
Yes.
JFK. John Kennedy said it best the other day when he described this because Joe Biden said to Lester Holt, yeah, you're being a bit of a wise ass with me. And John Kennedy said, before you can be a smart ass, you have to be smart. Otherwise, you're just an ass. And that's what Biden has been doing. He's just an ass.
Absolutely. Well, great show, and